Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today my guest is Dawn Phoenix. Dawn Phoenix is the owner of Dawn Lighthouse, where she offers remote dolphin energy healing and clinical hypnotherapy sessions. She also is a channel medium and the author of the Star Horses of Corolla, a children's book she channeled from the fairy horses living on the beaches of Corolla, North Carolina. So welcome being my guest today.
Thank you, Swanette. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we already had a short conversation before we have this interview, and I'm so curious, and I'm sure my audience is as well, to hear a little bit about your time before and after your awakening, because this has been a huge transformation for you, and I can understand that a lot of people can also feel like their awakening process and how they come into their gifts. So can you please share a little bit about your story?
Sure. So prior to my awakening process, which happened in 2014, I grew up in a household where we didn't even go to church, which is kind of handy because that was less for me to have to let go of, or try to figure out how does this fit in now with my new belief system. So that was kind of handy, but I never really grew up with a sense of there is this higher presence in my life. And I always felt like we were just this insignificant, random bubble of life floating around the universe here on the planet, which really wasn't very fun, especially when you're a kid. And I grew up actually my entire life having this paralyzing fear of death, especially when I would go to sleep at night. For some reason, that's when it would get me. And I think maybe because sleep reminded me of the idea of what I thought death might be, where you're just, Alan Watts talked about it, one time where he's like, you're shut up in a box and that's it. There's no existence after that. There's nothing. And I think there was a part of me that knew better and it railed against it. And as a child and even as a young adult, it came out as fear. So that was my greatest fear. It was paralyzing. It was awful. And so I grew up not having a connection, to God or source or spirit because I didn't know how or that it was even possible. And also having this paralyzing fear of death. And when I was with a friend, this is fast forwarding now to 2014. I'm with a friend and he is having his dog euthanized and he asked me to go with him. So I did. And she was a big girl. She was a Great Pyrenees. They're the big white fluffy dogs. They're gorgeous. And they had her up on a table. And I was just standing behind her with my hands kind of on the top of her head and at her neck, and he was at the front of her. And I just had my hands on her, and the last thing I remembered was seeing the veterinarian giving her the injection. The next thing I know, I'm standing, my eyes are closed, and all of a sudden I see this huge ball of golden light like before me, and my eyes are closed. So this is, I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it. And the only thing I remember thinking was, holy cow, how does something that huge fit into a body that small? And I didn't really realize what was going on at the time. So what happened was that huge ball left her body and kind of came into my body at my feet, traveled all the way up through me and out the top of my head. And then after that, I got this beautiful feeling of love and of coming home, like even better than when you walk in your own front door. And for a long time, I didn't really know what happened. Afterward, I was shaking and I was freezing cold and I slept the whole way home. It was about an hour drive, and I just slept the whole day. And after that, the next day, I'd recovered. Still didn't know what was going on, but I knew something in me had changed. The next day, I was meditating, and I had my first ever and most profound out-of-body experience where I was just zooming through space. And I just saw the stars, like if you see in Star Trek, you know, at the ship, the stars are just zipping by. And I felt these presences next to me. And I knew I wasn't alone. And I just kept thinking, where are we going? This is taking a really long time to get there. And, you know, I was like, I'm kind of tired right now. And when I thought that, we just stopped moving. And it was very interesting. And then I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, well, I'm ready to go. So we kept going, and then I realized we got somewhere, and where we got to, it was again that feeling of that love like I'd never felt before in my life. Words are just too small to even express it. And it was like I never wanted to leave. And I was just bathed in this beautiful love. And I remember looking up, and I saw a hand kind of coming down. And I reached my hand up to take that hand. And as soon as I took the hand, I said, don't let me fall. And then, of course, I'm back in my body. I was like, what the heck was that? So that was those were the two events that were the awakening process for me. And after that, it just unfolded where all of a sudden I knew, I had this innate knowing that my hands were meant for healing. And my husband at the time had an injury a couple days later, and I'm like, let me just do this. And I just laid my hands on him, and I was like, interesting. And my hands got all warm and everything. And I was like, well, that's cool. And he had like a bump on his leg, and it went away. And I was like, So then after that, I started actually looking into healing modalities to pick them up and actually learn them. And literally at that time, my fear of death evaporated like that. It was gone. So what I was told by my animal communication instructor, I'm also a certified animal communicator, when I told her about my experience with Dolly, that was the dog's name, she said that what she believed is that Dolly saw that I was ready to, embrace the light that was in me. And so she showed me, that there's more to us than what we see and think. And there's no reason to be afraid of death, to help me over that concept. So that's that story of my awakening. And since then, I have just been on a path of healing myself, from things that have happened in my life. And in that process, I'm able to share the journeys, that a lot of us experience. And having been there and done that, saying, you know what, it's okay. You come out on the other side shining. You can do it. You can do it. Been there, done that. So that's what I'm here for. That's my life purpose. That helped me discover it.
Wow. What a story. So I'm really impressed getting into this feeling, like seeing this dog there, bringing it into this light into you, and like you felt, okay, now something is changing. I'm transforming into becoming someone else, and understanding what your gifts are. But this hasn't been before. So what was your experience and your job before? So you haven't been a healer before, or in medical science or anything like that. So what have you done before?
Well, prior to that, I was a stay-at-home mom. And before that, I was a teacher. I was an elementary school teacher. And my life changed dramatically after my awakening. A year or two later, I ended up getting a divorce because the shift was so great for me. I couldn't stay. He wasn't a bad husband. It was just, we were so different, and he was so different from what I needed with who I had become. And I felt, and my family told me I was selfish, and they disowned me. And that's okay because that's their journey. But I knew that I came to the planet to do more than just be a stay-at-home mom for this one family. And so I knew that I needed to have the freedom to move where spirit put me and to work with the people I was meant to work with and not be tied down to the schedule that I was on of being everybody's cook and maid, and taxi. And I just felt that there was more that I came here to do. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but I needed to do more. And it was actually the best thing for everybody in the family. My son and my husband and I, we all agreed that it was the best thing. And it was very loving and very mutual. And nobody believed that we had gotten a divorce because we're still best friends. And, we said we make divorce look good. So it's all about conscious uncoupling, but it takes being in that space of awareness of respect and being conscious of your emotions and choosing your actions mindfully. Both people need to do that, not just one. So I was lucky enough to have a partner who was able to meet me at least that far. So yeah, my life changed dramatically after that. I opened Dawn's Lighthouse, which at the time was just hypnotherapy. And then I added in the energy medicine for the people who were ready to receive it. Not everybody is ready for that kind of a thing. Some people are more cerebral. And so I wanted to meet them in both places. So after I got the divorce, I went to hypnotherapy school and I picked up a couple healing modalities. And within 2 years, I was the clinical hypnotherapist, a healing touch practitioner, healing touch for animals practitioner, and an animal communicator. So I kind of just went through and did all the things I'd never done before.
Yeah, telling me that you went through a divorce for living the life you really wanted to live, and you felt that you have to bring out your gifts. This is really brave because you also left your son, like the son went with your father, with his father. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit how you managed it, that you could let them go and at the same time do all the education you needed to become the practitioners and hypnotherapist?
Well, the universe was kind to me in that when my ex-husband and I decided that if we were going to divorce, we were going to have our son live with just one of us, because we knew, and my being a teacher, I have a master's of teaching, I knew with, my child development and the child psychology training that the splits between the homes is no good. And my ex-husband was at the time in the military, and so he would be moving and we didn't know where he'd be living. So we just, compared to where I was, and how would that work if we were living in different states or across the country? So we knew that my son would want to live with him because they needed each other. I was like the handy person who did the cooking and the cleaning, but dad was his playmate, like dad was his soulmate, and they needed each other. And to take my son away from his dad would have been abuse. It would have been abusive. He would not have enjoyed his life with me. And his dad makes the kind of income that he has a regular job. He gets a pension now because he retired, and they're able to go to Japan for 2 weeks or to take a 2-week cruise to Mexico. My son has had an amazing childhood, and that's the life I could not ever have given him. And I wouldn't wish for him to have any other kind of life. That's what he needs. And I say that I was lucky because for the first, I think the first year of after the divorce, they still lived in the town that I lived in Colorado. So I still got to see them once a week, and it was sort of a gradual, thing where at least I got to see my son and, hang out with my best friend. And then the time came where they moved to Ohio. And that was kind of where it hit me like a ton of bricks. And this was also the time that I was in hypnotherapy school. So I got through the energy medicine stuff while they were still in town, and then hypnotherapy school came around the time that they moved. And it was actually kind of a blessing because it kept me so busy, because it was a lot of work in a short period of time. It kept me so busy that I didn't have enough time to really get down in the dumps too much. But I'll never ever forget the day that my son and his dad got in the car with the dog, my baby girl, who I raised since she was 2.5 months old. I wasn't sure who I was sadder to see go, her or them. They all got in the car and they started driving, to Ohio. And when they left, I saw them off, and I just sat at the foot of the stairs of the townhouse I was in, and I just cried. And I let myself have a good 5 or 10 minutes of just, letting my heart fall to pieces, because I knew that I needed to do it. And then after that, I felt okay, because I knew that what I had done was the right choice. And then it stopped hurting as much. So it was an adjustment, and I had, over the past couple of years, have to get used to being a Zoom mom and talking to him on the phone, and watching, as he's 13 now, him becoming someone so different than when I was his stay-at-home mom. And he doesn't have any memories, he tells me, of me cooking for him or playing with him or driving him to school. He says he doesn't have these memories, and it twists me inside, like, just ouch, and he doesn't do it on purpose, but he just doesn't have those memories. So I've been thinking, okay, I've done what I came to do right now. So I'm choosing, unless the universe puts something else in my path, when I'm done here in Georgia, where I live, I'm going to move to Ohio, because it's time for me to be near my son again, and in his life as much as he'll have me, but also run my business and do what I do, and hopefully have the best of both worlds. So fingers crossed.
Wow, this is very impressive that you are able to stay in such a good contact with your son and your ex-husband after the divorce, and you became friends. This is not happening very often to people when they go through a divorce. So this is really what you said, this conscious uncoupling is a step to do, and be aware that what you really want to hold, and that changing the love into a good friendship. So yeah. Again, it's very impressive for me to hear that. Yeah. So now that you are that you are in your gift, and you're working with hypnotherapy and with the healing, how is your environment reacting on that? Like your family, you once have been a teacher, like having a kind of serious job, and now you're doing something that is kind of not proven, or I would say for the normal people, it is different. So how does your environment react on your change?
Well, when I first started with the energy medicine work, with that training back in 2014, my mother, who was a nurse's aide, I was excited, and I told her all about it on the phone, and she told me basically that it was bunk. And she did say to me, why don't you get a real job? She's like, you have an education, you have degrees, why don't you have a real job instead of messing around with this stuff? And I said, Mom, Healing Touch was created by a nurse, a holistic nurse. It has scientific studies backing it. And I gave her a website and links to all the studies, and I don't think she ever bothered to go. So I learned quickly with her and the rest of my family. They live in Connecticut, so I didn't really see them a whole lot, because being married to, a spouse in the military, I moved all over. And so I wasn't having to be around them, at least, which it doesn't sound like I don't mean I didn't want to be around them, but with their disapproval, it was easier a little bit, because I only got the disapproval when we talked on the phone. So that started sort of this discontent that had been growing with my mother and I. And then when I told her, that year later, that I was divorcing my husband, she said that I was a terrible mother for abandoning my child, and a horrible wife for abandoning my husband. And she didn't care why I was doing it. And there were other reasons. It wasn't just me going off to play and do my thing. There was a deployment that he had that wrecked our marriage 3 years prior. Deployments are not kind, for families. And so there were a whole lot of things that she didn't understand. So when I told her I was divorcing, she disowned me and she wrote me out of her will. She said she was making my cousin her executrix instead, and it crushed me. It absolutely crushed me. I'm an only child. So because she was so very stuck in victimhood of where she had been hurt as a child, she had this desire to hurt people or let them go before they had a chance to do anything to her. It was her defense mechanism. And so I look at her and I understand that she's so hurt and unable to heal herself because she's not allowing it, that's why she reacted the way she did. And then her sister, my aunt, is really the only other one I talked to who had a problem with what I do and what I did. And my aunt said to me, I'll never forget when I was telling her about the energy medicine work, she said, "You're just not mainstream. We don't know how to deal with you." And I felt like, well, I don't understand that, because I don't sit there and say, "You're not woo-woo enough for me. I don't know how to deal with you." I'm like, I walk between both worlds just fine. And I took it a little personally at first, and I hadn't grown yet into who I am now. But then I understood also, you know what? That's her path. And this is my path. And she's free to walk her path without me judging her, because I don't like to be judged for my path. And so we don't communicate. The only person who communicates with me is my grandmother, who's 97 years old, has dementia, and lives in a nursing home. But she has always been different. And she gets it. She says to me, she calls me Annie because that's what her grandmother called her. And that's the nickname she gave to me. She says, "Annie, you've always been a little different, but I love you anyway." So for the time being, I'm blessed to have her on the planet with me. I know she has my back.
Was there anybody else who felt a strong connection to in your family?
No. I don't have any connection with my stepfather or my biological father. That was a big drama when I was first born, with my biological father, and then later in my life with my stepfather. So I had a difficult childhood with the stepfather. So, and he's passed now about 2 years ago. So no, there's no one else in my family. I have learned that with all the times I've moved since then, I've moved I think 4 times since then. The family is who you choose and invite in, and who accepts you for who you are. And it doesn't necessarily mean blood. That's one kind of family, but it's not the only kind of family.
Yeah, okay. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now? You're a channel, a medium, and also an energy healer and hypnotherapist. How does this all come together? Can you tell us a little bit more? What exactly are you doing?
Sure. Oh, this is exciting. I love this. Okay. So along my travels after between my divorce and now, back in 2018, I heard of a woman whose name is Linda Shea and her husband, David Rosenthal, and they own a website, and it's called Dolphin Heart World. And they teach people to become channels for dolphin energy to flow through them. And that's called being a dolphin energy practitioner. I was reading a book and came across, this concept that we can actually do that and don't have to swim with dolphins in the water. So, and Linda lives in Sedona, Arizona. So she lives in the desert and she does this. And so I picked that up, and that was another turning point in my life where I realized there's another layer of healing that I didn't experience with healing touch. And it was like the universe was sort of starting me out with one modality to get me ready for the next, modality to come in. So the next modality that came in was the dolphin energy healing. And it's my favorite because when I have sessions with people, the dolphins see us as whole and healed and healthy, and they bring our awareness into that space. And so a lot of us look at ourselves and think we're broken, or there's parts of us that need fixing, and the dolphins don't think of us in that way at all. And they see where we're headed because they've been where we are. And so they came here to the planet from Sirius, the star system with the whales, to bring us into our wholeness, to see that for humanity, you know, to serve our purpose in the universe. So I work with people. Partially what I do is with the dolphin energy healing. And I also tie in hypnotherapy because my whole theme with people is empowerment. And I want to help people realize, as I have through my experiences in my life, I want people to realize that everything they need is within them. And it's one thing to say it. You can say it all day long and it doesn't mean anything. But once people experience their own power, and I mean that in a good, loving, compassionate way, once they realize the power that they have, the power to create and the power to change things that they, you know, would like to see changed within themselves, it's like you hand someone the keys to this brand new neighborhood and they get to go walk around and explore it. So what I do with people is I have a program that I'm launching at the end of January, and it's called Life Purpose Mastery. And I'm going to use the dolphin energy healing and the hypnotherapy techniques to bring people into their own awareness of their own unique life purpose. And then the dolphins are going to take people to, they do this in all of my sessions, they're going to take people to their soul's point of origin, so they get to really experience personally who they truly are, not who society tells them they are, not who their families tell them they are, but who they were designed to be at their soul's inception. And they really take that in. And then the other parts of the 6 weeks are about building the new life that you would like to have. And it's a process that I did myself, but this is going to be no pain and a lot shorter, because once you learn yourself, then you can put together, you know, the process. So, yeah, I'm excited. And as a channel, I'm a channel, you know, for the energy to come through, so the energy medicine, but I also took an online course by Daniel Scranton, who's a channel himself. He's well known, and he had a couple online courses, and I took those, and I learned that I could write, but also be a verbal channel for other higher dimensional beings who want to come through me. Because a lot of the times in the dolphin energy healing sessions, the dolphins will have messages that come through, and so I'll just speak them for the person. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this other thing because I think that's probably similar. And so I now, that's how I got the book that I wrote with the Star Horses of Corolla. When I lived in North Carolina about a year ago, I had a part-time job, and it was at a horse tour company where they take people out to visit these horses on the beaches, not to touch them. They're feral, so it's like they're wild, but they still have contact with people. That's the difference between wild and feral. Wild is no contact with people, really. Feral is like they're used to people. So they take the people out in these vehicles onto the beaches, and people always ask when they would come in. I worked in the office, and they'd say, where did the horses come from? All of the tour guides, everybody had a different answer, and nobody actually really knew for sure. And so I said, I'm going to ask these guys. And lo and behold, I got the intuitive hit to create a children's book from their message. So I wrote the Star Horses of Corolla to help children understand that the horses tell them, yes, we came from the stars, but we brought magic with us, and you children, you carry that magic within you. You have that magic too, because you came from the stars. And to help children really stay in that place of magic, whereas we get older, it gets indoctrinated out of us. And so the horses are really wanting to support us in staying in our magic, and for adults, you know, to let the children guide us into the magic. And the funny thing too is, since the horses live on the beaches, they work with the dolphins. They're friends, actually. They were once good friends. And so the dolphins and the horses work together with us. So yeah, there's that. And there's one last thing that I'm working on right now, and I'll give everybody a sneak preview. I have 5 friends who are being my guinea pigs, and I channeled a message from the Phoenix Collective, and I had my last name as a result of my divorce, choosing it myself. So because I said I have risen from the ashes tons of times, that's who I am, and that's always going to be my name, because when does a woman ever get to choose her last name? So I took that opportunity. And I didn't know that the Phoenix Collective has been working with me my whole life, where we go through transitions and rise from the ashes and go through transitions. And so I'm meditating one day, minding my own business back in August of this year, 2020, and I channeled a message from the Phoenix Collective. They talked about who they are, where they came from, their purpose with humanity, and how their energy is coming back onto the planet now. And I thought that was it. They said, oh, we'll be back in touch, with people. Okay. So I put that up on my YouTube channel. And then about a month and a half ago, again, I was meditating and I realized I'd gotten a download, and it was from the Phoenix Collective, and they downloaded to me their modality. And so for the first time ever, instead of learning a modality where I have to pay for the training, I got one for free from the universe. And so I'm testing it out with my guinea pig friends, and I'm getting testimonials from them and seeing, the process that they're going through and how it's working for them. So it's wonderful. And I asked very specifically for the structure of each session and the structure of the whole program, how the whole thing is going to play out. And the Phoenix Collective gave it to me. And so it's kind of like once people work with the dolphin energy, they can graduate into the Phoenix energy. And that's about becoming. So the dolphins help us, heal and learn who we are. And then the next step in that is actually becoming who you're meant to be. And that's where the Phoenix Collective takes over. And so it's been great.
Yeah, very interesting. I've never heard about the Phoenix Collective. So what is it? What did they tell you who they are and what they want to do and why they are now in contact with other people? So what is it?
Well, they came to us thousands of years ago, and we have our legend, of the phoenix, of the bird, the fire, the bird that's made of fire and that burns, and then there's a pile of ashes, and then, it becomes a phoenix again from the ashes. And they said their original intention when they were here physically with us, that's where we get our stories from, is that we interacted with them. But they said it was, there was a miscommunication. They were showing us what we're capable of by being an example and hoping that we would, they were being mirrors to us to see our own potential. But being the human beings that we are, and as adept as we are at glorifying, others and putting them on a pedestal, what we did was turn them into a legend and saw them as being this great and wonderful, mystery. And they became more legend and story than real. And they started to fade away into the other dimensions because they realized, okay, these people are not understanding our metaphor for who they are. We don't want them worshiping us and thinking that it's all about us. And so they realized this is not working. So they kind of faded away and let their stories, just stay. And they said now they're not coming back in the physical, but their energy is coming back onto the planet through channels and people who are able to channel it, because humanity, they're giving it another go because they believe that this is the time that humanity is ready enough to see our own greatness. And so the process that they use with people is just exactly what their process is. They take us through a period of purification because fire is purifying, and that's what they want us to understand, is that even with forest fires and volcanoes, it looks like there's destruction. But when you go back and you see that life is really growing from that fertile ground, then you see that there's growth from that, what once appeared to be death and destruction. And they say, use their metaphor. So they say, okay, there's that purification. That's when they light up into fire. And then they say, then there's the pile of ashes. And this is the most pivotal part for them, for us to understand, is that the pile of ashes symbolizes the space of infinite creative potential. And that's what they are all about. And that's where they want us to understand. And we did this last week. We revisited the place of infinite creative potential. And the space is amazing. It's looking into a void and seeing everything instead of nothing. And you get this sensation of just having the ability to create whatever you want. Even if you don't know what it is, you see something, a flower. They said, okay, everybody create a flower that you would like. And some people's created flowers that they didn't even know, they called it an alien flower. So they had the concept of flower in their head, but in this beautiful space of infinite potential, they were able to create something never before. And so that's what the ashes are in the symbolism of the phoenix, is that space of infinite potential that nothing is added to. It's just that very magical space. And that's exactly where the phoenix comes back from. It's just that space. There's nothing else added, no other ingredients. And so they're bringing us into that space so that we can then come out of the ashes and recreate who we are, but purified. So we're not bringing anything that no longer serves us with us, only that which is for our highest good, because that's their process that they do. So they're kind of taking us by the hand and walking us step by step through the process so that we get it this time. Whereas last time it was sort of a suggestion and people went in the wrong direction, according to them.
Yeah, I think the earth, the people really needs this awakening of the people, and for having them coming into a good power and into love and bringing out all the gifts they really have inside, because it's not only you and me. There are so many people who really have these deep gifts and perhaps are afraid of bringing that out or to understand what it is. So how does a process looks like when someone who is kind of blank with a challenge, whatever it is, comes to you? And also what other challenges people come to you with?
Oh, sure. Well, let's see. One of the most memorable was actually, I was honored. She was one of my instructors for Healing Touch back when I first opened my brick and mortar practice for the hypnotherapy. And she had one of the challenges, that her biggest challenge was she had a dermatological issue where she would pick at her skin all the time, and she had scars all over her, mostly on her arms. And she would just pick while she was watching TV. And she had done this since she was a child. And she was in her 50s and had gone to tons of doctors, psychologists, dermatologists, and all they could think of was they had no diagnosis for her. They just said it was a nervous disorder, and they tried putting her on, of course, antidepressants, and she was not having it. And so she came to me and she said, I think this is a past life issue. And I do a lot of work. One of my favorite things to do with hypnotherapy is past life work. And so she had the intuition to follow that she thought it was a past life issue. So we went in and checked with her subconscious mind to see, is this a past life issue? And indeed it was. The subconscious mind gives, yeses or nos. So we went and visited that past life. And one way that I work with people in past life regression is that we go in and we get to view the incident, and then the higher self comes in and helps you rewrite what happened. So it's like, yes, that trauma happened, but you get to rewrite that part of the trauma. So yes, it happened, you're not changing it, but the body responds to the imagination as much as it does reality. It doesn't know the difference. And the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So when we're able to bring in the higher self and rewrite the incidents that happened so that the trauma doesn't occur, the body is then able to heal instead of holding on to that trauma. And she also realized in rewriting the incident that occurred, she also realized her gifts and talents that she was able to bring forth into this lifetime from that particular lifetime as an artist. And so what she ended up doing was healing. Instead of picking at herself, she was able to let that go because she wasn't stuck in that trauma anymore, and her body wasn't stuck in it. And she started creating pendulums. And so she kept her hands busy when they were used to doing something with the picking. Instead, she created pendulums. And so she was able to sell them and bring in income for herself. So that's when I say I work with people to help them, understand the power that's within them. That's what I like to do, is bring people to the place where they can discover, oh, I have the power to change this. I can do this. So that's one of the most memorable experiences I've had with a client.
So, and what are other clients that come to you? Like, what are their issues? Do they always have health issues, or are there also people that just want to figure out about what their gift is or why they're here on earth? So what are topics or challenges normally your clients do have?
So I have had a number of people come to me with the Dolphin energy healing who are skirting sometimes in a desire to create change in their life, whether it's with relationships or in their line of work. They just know that there's something that's not working for them. And so one of the things that with the Dolphin energy healing, and this is why I included that in my program, one of the things that with the Dolphin energy healing will help people understand who they are on a soul level and why a particular relationship in their life needs to either fall away or they need to change how they view it, whether it's family members or a romantic relationship. They can see through a new perspective of who they are. So they can see, oh, this relationship is not aligned with who I am, and that's why it doesn't feel good to me. And instead of keeping myself in this relationship, whether it's with, family or romantic, and having it just feel yucky to me and then start affecting physically, they're able to, with love, release that relationship instead of either suffering and going through the relationship or doing, an ending of the relationship in a way that's not conscious. So that's another way that, I work with people. They have the changes that they know they need to make. They just don't know how. And they just need that support of, a lot of the times they understand, yeah, there's a voice at the back of my head telling me I should do this, but they actually get to experience, why that voice is telling them what it's telling them. I also have people come to me, and especially this is true with people in their careers. They want to make a change. They either want to shift into a different track completely unrelated to what they're doing, or they want to just make a small shift. I would really like to get this promotion and I need to know how to do it. So we want to go from where they are now to where they want to be. That's when they come to me for that. And this is a hypnotherapy technique that we use to bring them through 3 months, 6 months, 5 years up the road, 10 years, 30 years up the road, where they get to experience, okay, let's imagine you make that change. Now let's see how your life is, what you did to get there. Now let's see how your life is. And we go through a timeline. It's called timeline therapy. So they get to walk a possible future timeline for a choice that they want to make until they get to the end of the timeline, where there's that future wiser part of themselves who gives them wisdom and advice on that whole, that part of them is with them, that whole timeline. And then when they get to the end of it, they are able to meet and face to face stand there with their older, wiser self and really bring that advice in. So they get to experience the change before they do it. And that serves two purposes. It makes it easier for them to try to make the steps, to take the steps to make the change happen, because they're not afraid anymore, because they've already experienced it once. So their mind is primed for it. It's already happened. So now it's that whole, fifth dimensional mindset of, I'm acting as if it's already happened, because in the mind it has. And so it makes it easier to do. And then also mentally it makes it easier to do. And then when they come up against challenges and things that they may have experienced through that timeline walk that they did, and this is a possible future timeline, it doesn't encompass everything, but if there is a challenge that they come up against, it's not going to be such a big roadblock for them, because they've understood what they need to do to get around it, because they've experienced that challenge already. Their mind has already presented it to them. So that's really fulfilling to me, because again, when people walk out of the office, they're different from when they come in. And everything I do now is over Zoom, but this is when I had the brick and mortar location. And they would walk in being one person and having a thought set about themselves, and then leaving completely different and understanding that they have so much more power than they ever knew they had.
Impressive again. So it is really that people can understand, okay, this is how my future could look like, and are not scared to do the first step and the next one, because they already figured out how this could look like. It is like they already created their own story for going into the future. And yeah, okay. And at the moment you said you're working mostly on Zoom, so you can help internationally. It doesn't matter whether a client is even doing hypnotherapy via Zoom?
Oh, everything. When I would do the hypnotherapy in person, their person is laying in my chair with their eyes closed. So it's actually perfect for Zoom, because we just turn off, and I do it over the phone too, for people who aren't international, if they prefer that, because you're just listening to my voice. My voice is the guide. So it's actually perfect. I've been wanting to move my business completely online. And so now I've been able to, and it's wonderful. And with the dolphin energy healing, this is something that I found to be amazing that I hadn't bumped into with the healing touch modality. With the dolphin energy healing, in our training, we learned that you can say you want to give a healing session, to someone who lives in a different part of the world. And at the time that they would like their healing session, you're asleep. So, it's 3 o'clock in the morning for you. And I had someone, who wanted one. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. And I just frankly didn't want to be up that early to give a healing session. So we were trained. Okay. What the practitioner does is the practitioner gives the healing session. They just do a healing session, whatever comes through, because the dolphin consciousness is the one doing the work. We're taught dolphin is the doer. We're just the channel. So all I need to do is be an open conduit for that energy to come through me. And so what I did was I just sat and I gave the session for the hour. The dolphin energy came through me, and I set the intention for that energy to go into that person's spiritual inbox, is what my instructor, Linda Shea, would call it. And I trusted that it would. And then that person, when they desired their healing session, they went in and they accessed their spiritual inbox and they got their session. And what we did was we talked afterward. And it was amazing, because what I experienced and saw being the conduit in the session and the things I saw before me were what she experienced when she received her session. So I didn't need to know. When Dolphin is the doer, I don't need to know the healing intention. I'm just the conduit. Dolphin knows. They use their sonar to see into our physical bodies, into our energy fields, into past lives. They see it all. So they know what they're doing. And it was just the most crazy thing that I could actually give a session to someone who a day later would get it when they chose to get it. It was so cool. So I love that. It's very handy.
Yeah, wow. If people now are so much interested that they would like to reach out to you, where can they find you? Like, do you have some links you can tell people, Facebook, website?
Mm-hmm.
Where do they find your course, for example? Can you give us some details?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'll start with my website. So it's a little bit, the words are broken up into sections. So the name of it is Dawn's Lighthouse, but because that website was taken, I had to break up the name. So it's Dawn's, DAWNS, then a hyphen, and then light, LIGHT, then a hyphen, and then house, HOUSE.com. So dawns-light-house.com. And there on my front page, I have a little announcement about the course that's coming up, the program. And right now I'm working on the specific link for it. So there's just the date and the time for that, and to just stay tuned. So I have that. And I also keep everybody posted on what's going on my Facebook page. So you can just look me up on Facebook, Dawn's Lighthouse. Light and house are two separate words. So it's Dawn's and then light and then house. So those are the Facebook page and the website. And my YouTube channel is Dawn's Light House, just like you would spell it for the Facebook page. And I'm on YouTube there. It's a purple butterfly perched on the D in my name. So you'll know that that's me. So yeah, those are my links.
Yeah, I will put in the links down in the description so that people can find them easily and just have to click and come to your website, Facebook or YouTube channel.
Thank you.
So last but not least, do you have any tips that you could give as a short advice for my audience?
Well, I definitely think that if this comes, we're doing this before the new year and going into the new year, I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of shift and change going on as we move out of the energy of 2020 into 2021. So I think the number one tip I would give to people is be kind to yourselves and pay attention to what your body needs. If you're feeling like you need more rest, get more rest. We are constantly doing. And that's one of the things the Dolphins tell us. On my website, you can sign up to get these 3 messages. It's a PDF from them. And one of the things they tell us is, you're not doings, you're beings, which is a popular, theme. So if you're feeling just like, I need to just rest and be, just rest and be before your body chooses to make you just rest, by physical illness. So listen to your body and definitely do what it needs. And just understand that even if the world around you is going through change and shift and upheaval, because this is going to be happening, that doesn't mean that it has to affect you. So breathing is always my number one go-to for a calming technique. When you take a deep breath, it calms your overactive nervous system. And so if you find that you're feeling stressed, either by something you see on the news or you read online or even your family around you, just close your eyes or go into a different room or somewhere. Even in the grocery store checkout line, you can do this and just breathe mindfully, a couple deep breaths, and you'll be amazed at how your body responds and slows down. So just be aware and give yourselves lots of self-love.
Wow, this is very powerful. So thank you very much for being my guest today. It was a pleasure for me, and I hope to see you soon, and let's speak again.
Thank you, Swanette. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, Spiritual-Changemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual-Changemakers-Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.